Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Retro Wrestling Review Series, Season 5, Episode. Um, I just have to look because I legitimately have no idea what episode it is because I've been doing these non-stop, so it's sometimes I lose track. So it's going to be Episode 5, I thought it was. Now I'm going to be covering the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view from 2013. And this one should be interesting because I remember at the time when I watched it, I actually enjoyed the show, and this was actually the first Chamber review I actually did itself. I did it a couple of years ago. I may watch my old review after I watch the show itself, um, just to see what how much my thoughts have changed on this show, where I thought people were going. So yeah, this is going to be interesting. Uh, now it's 2013, a new year for the WWE at the time, and the matches look like they deliver. I'll just run through them. We have a pre-show match because this is when they were in 2012. They started doing 30-minute YouTube pre-shows. So they would just throw a match on the pre-show. So I'm gonna watch the pre-show itself and talk about it. So we got a pre-show match. But for the real show itself, we have an elimination chamber match, a world heavyweight championship match, a United States championship match, a six-man tag team match, a Divas title match, and a WWE championship match. So, we at least have a full stack card unlike the last year, the year prior's elimination chamber. So that's finally something. I'm happy about that. And yeah, now that I've kind of went through the card, let me talk about the show itself. So how I'm going to structure this video is, since there's a pre-show, I'm going to watch the pre-show and review it all in one take and just kind of do it, other than that, the same way I've been doing it. So I hope you guys like this video, and let's get started with the review. Okay, so we had the pre-show, and we had Matt Striker and Tony Dawson on commentary. Matt Striker, I believe this would be one of his last shows he ever commentated because he would be out of the company shortly afterwards, which is kind of sad because he actually was a good hand to have on commentary. He wasn't like a great commentator, but he was, I thought, good at calling the action, calling the storylines. It is kind of a shame that he's not in commentary because I think he could be doing something with WWE. And Tony Dawson, really never saw much of his commentary work, but seeing him on the show, I can understand why they got rid of him. He just didn't really feel like he cut it as a commentator, so I can totally understand why they got rid of him. But they run down the matches for the show, so I'll kind of do the same thing. We have a Divas Championship match. Divas Champion Caitlyn versus Tamina Snuka. United States Championship match. United States Champion Antonio Cesaro versus The Miz. A World Heavyweight Championship match. World Heavyweight Champion Alberto Del Rio versus The Big Show. An Elimination Chamber match to determine the number one contender to the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 29. We had one half of the WWE Tag Team Champions, Daniel Bryan, and the other half of the WWE Tag Team Champions, Kane, versus and Kane and Bryan were facing each other, versus Mark Henry versus Chris Jericho versus Randy Orton versus, so it was Bryan, Kane, Jericho, Orton, Mark Henry, and Jack Swagger. We also had a six-man tag team match. John Cena, Sheamus, and Ryback versus The Shield, which I'll get into who was in that stable in a second. And then we had the main event of the show. It was a WWE Championship match. WWE Champion The Rock versus CM Punk, where if The Rock got counted out or disqualified, he would lose the WWE Championship. So now that I've talked about it, I'll talk about the build-up. They talked about the build-up, so some of them I'll go over right now because I didn't really touch on it too much, and the others I'll go on to as I review this pre-show. So the reason why Caitlyn and Tamina Snuka were feuding over the Divas title, I don't exactly know why, but I somewhat know why. Is Caitlyn had won the Divas Championship on an episode of Raw, and she didn't want to just be sitting around like all the other Divas champions were. She wanted to be a fighting champion, so Tamina Snuka challenged her, and she accepted. No, this was still a bad time in the Divas division, so, yeah. That was kind of the whole gist of this match. And the U.S. title match between Antonio Cesaro and The Miz. So Antonio Cesaro had won the United States Championship at SummerSlam, and this was at a time when they were actually really pushing Antonio Cesaro, which you wouldn't think about it, but they were really behind him. He would be securing victories, making him look strong, and he was looking like a really strong United States champion. And then The Miz, meanwhile, had Survivor Series of 2012 had turned face, and eventually it led to him versus Antonio Cesaro for the U.S. title. And Antonio Cesaro was successfully defended against The Miz at the Royal Rumble. But Antonio Cesaro and The Miz kept attacking each other, so eventually this led to a rematch between the two. So overall, I actually liked the feud they had with each other. It was actually a good altercation. And then we had the feud for the World Heavyweight Champion between Alberto Del Rio and Big Show. And Big Show had won the World Heavyweight Championship at Hell in a Cell of 2012. And at TLC 2012, Alberto Del Rio turned face, which was a really interesting change-up. Which I didn't really like him as a babyface, because to me, Del Rio's always been better suited as a heel. But it was something different for Del Rio, because he was really bland as a heel at the time. And Big Show, on the New Year's Eve episode of Raw, could pick whoever he wanted to face for the World Heavyweight Championship. And he picked Alberto Del Rio as a personal ring announcer, Ricardo Rodriguez. And but Del Rio ended up interfering in the match, which led to a disqualification. So then on SmackDown, Alberto Del Rio faced Big Show in a last man standing match for the World Heavyweight Championship, and Alberto Del Rio won the matchup and became the new champion, and which was a surprise. Then at the Royal Rumble, Del Rio beat him in the exact same match stipulation in a rematch, because Ricardo and Big Show duct taped Big Show's feet to the ropes, and then this led to Big Show getting angry, so that he decided he pretty much killed Del Rio and Ricardo Rodriguez, and Del Rio got upset about it, tried to attack him in the parking lot, but Big Show escaped, and then Big Show just went out and knocked Del Rio backstage again. So then this led to a World Heavyweight Championship match, and they attacked each other in a hotel room, and they also Del Rio did things like replacing Big Show's tires and dumping Nickelodeon slime on him, stuff like that. Wasn't any. This feud was okay though. It wasn't a great feud, but it was an okay feud. Then we had the Elimination Chamber match, which I'll actually get to that. I'll talk about that now, because that actually revolves around the first segment of this show. Since John Cena had won the Royal Rumble, he decided to go after the WWE Championship. So Booker T, who was the general manager of SmackDown at the time, needed to find a number one contender for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 29. So he decided to throw this Elimination Chamber match together, and people had matches to try to impress Booker T in qualifying matches. So let me talk about these matches. So Randy Orton qualified by defeating Wade Barrett. Daniel Bryan qualified by defeating Rey Mysterio, who Mysterio was actually supposed to be in this match, but he ended up getting injured, so he couldn't compete. Kane qualified by defeating Dolph Ziggler. Jack Swagger qualified by defeating Zack Ryder. And Mark Henry and Chris Jericho both made returns. Jericho returned at the Royal Rumble, and Mark Henry had returned on an episode of Raw where he took out Rey Mysterio. So they both wanted spots in the Elimination Chamber. And Chris Jericho qualified by defeating Daniel Bryan, and Mark Henry qualified by defeating Randy Orton. So this brought us to this match, and some people in this match had a history with each other. You know, Daniel Bryan and Kane were tag team partners in the tag team Team Hell No, and you know, they had the history in that aspect. Daniel Bryan and Mark Henry had a little bit of a history from feuding over the World Heavyweight Championship in 2011. Who else had history in this match? I guess you could say Daniel Bryan and Randy Orton had a history from when Daniel Bryan gave Randy Orton that concussion a year ago. And then Kane had a history with pretty much everybody in this match. He had a history with Mark Henry from when Mark Henry had taken him out during his Hall of Pain incident. He had a history with Chris Jericho where You know, they had feuded pretty much, you know, back in 1999 during the Attitude Era. Well, actually back in 2000 during the Attitude Era. Um, he had a history with, he didn't really have a history, I guess you could say, with Jack Swagger. But he had a history with Randy Orton dating into the WrestleMania match last year. And Chris Jericho had a history with Randy Orton from when Randy Orton had kicked him in the skull and to put him out of action. And he didn't really have a history with anybody else in this match except for Kane, really, either. Maybe Daniel Bryan, but not really. And then Mark Henry had a history with, like I had said, Daniel Bryan. He also had a history with Randy Orton from their feud for the World Heavyweight Championship in 2011. Who else had a history in this match with each other? Randy Orton had a history with, pretty much said, well, he also had a history with Jack Swagger from the feud over the World Heavyweight Championship in 2010. And it's really about it. No one else really had any issues with each other. But building up to this match, they were really building up Jack Swagger because he had just recently returned. He had been off TV for a while. And he had just introduced Zeb Coulter, and they were just kind of starting to get Jack Swagger into the Real American gimmick where they hated people sneaking across the borders, which I thought really worked for him at the time. Daniel Bryan and Kane were arguing with each other because they both wanted to win this matchup. And Randy Orton and Mark Henry had a couple of altercations where Mark Henry kept laying out Randy Orton. And yeah, so there was some stuff going on in this match. So the first thing that happens on the show itself is Randy Orton gets interviewed, and he says that he's going on to he knows how the Elimination Chamber is, and he is willing to use every part of that Elimination Chamber to put everybody down so he can go on to WrestleMania and fight for the World Heavyweight Championship. And then he says that the Elimination Chamber isn't the thing that people need to worry about. They need to worry about me because I have taken out the most people's careers and I've main evented more WrestleManias than anybody in this matchup. So overall, I thought he cut a solid promo. And then it talks about the build-up for the six-man tag team match between John Cena, Sheamus, Ryback, and The Shield. So I'll kind of talk about that. So at Survivor Series 2012, The Shield had made their debut. They attacked Ryback and cost him the WWE Championship. And they were running roughshod over the WWE. And if you don't know who's in The Shield, it consists of Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns. And the Shield were running roughshod over everybody. They had defeated Team Hell No and Ryback in a TLC match at TLC. They had taken out The Rock. They had taken out Randy Orton. They took out Sheamus. They were just running roughshod over everybody. And then finally they came in and they took out John Cena the night after he won the Royal Rumble. And they had a big brawling segment with John Cena, Ryback, and Sheamus where the Shield ended up standing tall. And then the next week, John Cena, Ryback, and Sheamus wanted payback, so they came in and did just that. So this set up this six-man tag team match. And the Shield say they did this because the Shield fights for injustice. So they claim that Sheamus loves to fight. Well, you need to learn that your fighting spirit's going to be broken. And they say that Ryback's a big guy. Nobody can beat him. And he's like, well, pay back, Ryback. And welcome to reality, Ryback. And they say that the reason they attacked Cena was because John Cena's been able to say and do whatever he wanted. And not suffer the consequences. And that's what we call the John Cena problem, which I love that quote by Dean Ambrose. And he says that, they're going to put him down. And then Ryback says that he's waited for this match for months because he wanted to get his hands on the Shield for constantly costing him opportunities at the WWE Championship. And then Sheamus says that he's going into this match looking for a fight. And John Cena talks about how the Shield needs to be met with the sword, and they're going to win the sword at Elimination Chamber. And that kind of just led us to this matchup. And, they had another brawling segment where Cena and Ryback, the lights went out and the lights came back on and they teleported to the win. So, overall, this matchup I thought was built up pretty successfully. But it was a really concerted matchup because we were wondering if this was going to be it for the Shield. They were going to finally lose because Sheamus, John Cena, and Ryback was somebody were guys that the company looked at very heavily, especially too since John Cena had just won the Royal Rumble match. So it was a concerning time. So let's see if this year we're able to pull it off. And then we had the actual first match itself on the show. It was Team Rhodes Scholars, which had consisted of Cody Rhodes and Damian Sandow versus Brodus Clay and Tensai with the Funkadactyls ringside. So there was a little bit of history to this match. Not much. Team Rhodes Scholars had come together as a tag team in 2012, but then they decided to go off in their separate ways. But then they decided to reunite for one night only on this show. As for Brodus Clay and Tensai, I can't believe what I'm about to say for the reason of this matchup. So Tensai and Brodus Clay was supposed to have a dance-off because this was during the Raw Roulette show. But the wheel had spun for a lingerie pillow fight. And Tensai thought they were having a lingerie pillow fight, so he was dressed in lingerie. So then he was told then it was a dance-off, so then they both started dancing together. And they both just kind of started building chemistry, and they were trying to force these guys into a tag team. And it really sucked for Tensai just because of the fact that Tensai was somebody that had come back, and he had looked really dominant. He had beaten John Cena in a match. He had beaten CM Punk, who was the WWE champion at the time. And then all of a sudden now he's just looking like a goon. So it sucked for Tensai. And Brodus Clay could have been used as a main event monster as well. But then, well, not main event, but he could have been used as a big-time unstoppable monster, but then all of a sudden he was the Funkasaurus, so it just was not a good time to be a Brodus Clay and Tensai fan. So so Team Rhodes Scholars come out during this match, and they talk about how Damian Sandow said that ever since that me and my former tag team partner and best friend Cody Rhodes had broken up. You guys took to social media. You guys wanted to see us reunite. And then Cody says, you wanted, you got it. But we're doing this on our terms, not yours. And then that was it. I thought they cut a really good promo. And then we had the match itself. It was a match you'd probably see maybe on Superstars. Clay and Tensai dominate the matchup. And Team Rhodes Scholars take control when Cody Rhodes hits a disaster kick on Tensai. They dominate him for a while. And then Brodus Clay gets the hot tag. And pretty much it was just the end of Team Rhodes Scholars. Brodus and Tensai double splash Damian Sandow in the corner. Then they hit a double headbutt to the ribs of Cody Rhodes. And then hit a double splash on him for the win. Then afterwards, Brodus Clay and Tensai danced together. It was, it was dumb. And the aftermath of this match, didn't really go anywhere good. Team Rhodes Scholars aren't even in the company anymore. They eventually, though, came back. They eventually went on to continue this feud. They would have a match the night after WrestleMania because it got canceled at WrestleMania. And, Tons of Funk won because they became later known as Tons of Funk. And then Team Rhodes Scholars would shortly afterwards break up because Sandow had won the Money in the Bank. They would go on to feud. And then Cody Rhodes and Damian Sandow stuck it out with the company for a few more months, and then they eventually were both released from the company around the same time. And they both are now in TNA, and Cody Rhodes is doing other things. He's in New Japan Pro Wrestling. He's all over the world now. And Sandow's in TNA and as Aaron Rex now. So, and Brodus Clay and Tensai. Brodus Clay, eventually went off to break off his tag team, turned heel. Then he ended up getting released, and now he's Tyrus in TNA. And Tensai is now a trainer in NXT. So the other one you could say that's really still in the company to this day is Tensai, but he's not in a wrestling role. So nobody in this match really benefited. It was just there. And then next it shows an Elimination Chamber video package. Just kind of the stuff, the going over the rules of the Elimination Chamber and everything. I like watching that video package. I think it's really good. And then we had a build-up for the WWE Championship match between CM Punk and The Rock, so I'll talk about that. So the reason this match was happening was because CM Punk was the longest reigning WWE Champion in history. He had held that belt for 434 days. And on the 1000th episode of Monday Night Raw, he turned heel and attacked The Rock, which they shouldn't have turned him heel, but they did. Because they wanted The Rock to go and get the heel, and they wanted Punk to be that heel. So then they had a match at the Royal Rumble. CM Punk, I talked about, CM Punk and The Rock was exchanging blows with each other. verbally, so I thought that was good. And The Rock would defeat CM Punk and win the WWE Championship. Um, and CM Punk claims that he was screwed because during that match he actually had beaten The Rock due to interference from the Shield. And he claimed that he had already beaten The Rock, that really he should be the WWE champion. And The Rock was happy to be the WWE champion because he hadn't been the WWE champion in 10 years. And then the feud kind of escalated, and CM Punk got his rematch for the title at the Elimination Chamber. And he had the caveat added in where, Paul Heyman worked out a deal with Vince McMahon that where The Rock got counted out or disqualified, he would lose the title, but Paul Heyman has to do something for him in return. So the match that was made, and then CM Punk, had mentioned it, and The Rock says that you're gonna have to beat me one-on-one, and you're gonna have to kill me to win the title. And then CM Punk had laid out The Rock on the go-home show of Raw and walked out with The Rock's title. So overall, the build-up of that match was actually pretty good, and it was very good. A good sign that The Rock was wrestling on this show, because it made this show feel special that The Rock was wrestling on it. So you can look at it in that aspect. So now that I've kind of talked about the pre-show, and overall I thought the pre-show was just okay. It wasn't anything special. It was okay. I liked Orton's promo. The Team World Scholars, Brodus Clay and Tensai match was whatever. So if you want to watch the show, skip the pre-show because it's not really worth checking out. Okay, so we have the actual show itself. We had JBL, who was this was his first time on commentary, not on the pay-per-view. He had been back for a while, but he had come back to WWE in 2012 to do commentary. Michael Cole, who was finally back to a face commentator, which is, thank God, because he was such an annoying heel commentator. I forgot how annoying he was until I've been watching these past few shows. And Jerry the King Lawler on commentary. So it's JBL, Michael Cole, and Jerry the King Lawler on commentary. And we had the first match. It was a World Heavyweight Championship match. World Heavyweight Champion Alberto Del Rio with Ricardo Rodriguez ringside versus The Big Show. And this was actually a good match. This was actually a good World Heavyweight Championship match. Del Rio and Big Show, I thought, had good matches together. They weren't great matches, but they were good. It was just kind of awkward, though, that Del Rio was feuding with the Big Show. And there was some, they were trying to push Del Rio as a babyface, but so many of his heel tactics were heel. And heel tactics, and I'll talk about that in this match. But the first half of this match, Big Show destroys Del Rio. He hits a body slam on him. And he just beats the crap out of Del Rio, but then eventually Del Rio is able to get the upper hand, and he gets him Big Show the first time to do a cross arm breaker. Well, before that, too, Big Show had even dropped all his weight down on Del Rio from the top turnbuckle, and there's like an avalanche on him, which was kind of cool. But then Del Rio does the cross arm breaker, and this is kind of where the example lies, where Big Show is trying to reach for the ropes, and Ricardo Rodriguez pulls the ropes back, so Big Show can't get to him, which was heel tactics. And then, but Big Show's able to get to the ropes, and then Del Rio tries to go off the second turnbuckle, but Big Show catches him into a bear hug, and Rodriguez gets on the apron and with the bucket, and Big Show releases the hold, so yet again another heel tactic, and Big Show throws the bucket at Rodriguez, and then Del Rio starts to make a little bit of a comeback, but then Big Show's able to intervene it, but then eventually Big Show goes for a powerbomb on Del Rio, but Del Rio counters with a Hurricanrana, and then he hits a suicide dive on Big Show, and then he hits a Cena Senton on Big Show, covers him, and Big Show kicks out, and then eventually Big Show hits a chokeslam on Del Rio. Del Rio kicks out. Big Show goes for the knockout punch. Del Rio ducks it, and Del Rio tries to hit a roll up on Big Show, but Big Show then palms him up. Well, no, Del Rio rolls out of the ring actually, and then Big Show pulls him back in the ring. Then Del Rio tries to hit the sunset flip, but Big Show pulls him up, and then Del Rio hits a DDT on him. Big Show still kicks out, and then Del Rio gets the cross arm breaker win on the Big Show, and Big Show doesn't want to tap out, so eventually Big Show is able to make it to... he powers out of it and hits a powerbomb onto him. And then Big Show sets up for the knockout punch again. And Big Show kicks Ricardo Rodriguez through the ropes. And and Big Show grabs they have a bucket that they brought with them. Big Show grabs the bucket, and Del Rio goes to hit an insecurity on him. And they actually cut this part out of the network, but I remember this spot. Del Rio actually had missed it the first time, but then he's able to hit it the second time, which I thought was kind of a funny spot. And then Del Rio hits the insecurity again, just regular, and then he gets Big Show in the cross arm breaker, and Big Show tries to get to the ropes, but he can't get to the ropes, and eventually Big Show ends up tapping out, so Del Rio successfully defends his World Heavyweight Championship. And this was a good match here. It was just kind of weird that Del Rio was supposed to be a babyface, and but he was using a lot of heel tactics in this match, so it was weird. But the aftermath of this match is, I won't go too far into it because it does kind of revolve around this show. But the aftermath revolved around Del Rio. He would go on to defend his World Heavyweight title at WrestleMania against the winner of the Elimination Chamber match. And Big Show, Sheamus, and Randy Orton went on to face the Shield in a 6-man tag team match. So that's kind of where both guys went. And then Big Show would eventually turn face later on that year. And this would also be the last time ever that the World Heavyweight Championship was ever defended at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, because after this show they had unified the titles, and they had the World Heavyweight title ended up kind of going away, and they became the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. So that was kind of cool. But overall, good match. Okay, so next was a United States Championship match. United States Champion Antonio Cesaro versus The Miz. And one thing I forgot to mention about the build-up, a couple of things, is this was a time when Antonio Cesaro was anti-America. He didn't like America. He claimed, that everybody in America was lazy, which I thought was a gimmick that was working for him. Wasn't the greatest gimmick for him, but I thought it was working. And another thing is that The Miz's shoulder was all taped up in this match because he wasn't at 100%, because Antonio Cesaro had swung him around the barricade a couple of times while The Miz was facing Cody Rhodes in a match, so forgot to mention that. The match itself, though, I thought was good. A good United States title match. The Miz gets as much offense as he can at first on Cesaro, but then Cesaro takes control and works over the shoulder of The Miz, and he did some really cool stuff with it. He hit a shoulder breaker on The Miz, which looked really cool, and he just laid rights and left hands on The Miz, and he hung Miz's shoulder under the ropes, but then eventually Miz started to make a little bit of a comeback. He hit a clothesline in the corner, and he went to go off the top rope, but Cesaro caught him into an armbar, but Miz was able to get to the ropes and throw Cesaro out of the ring, and Miz tries to go off the top rope, but then Cesaro catches him, and he goes to ram him shoulder first into the steel post, but Miz gets out of it and throws Cesaro into the knee first into the steps, and then Miz starts working over the knee of Cesaro, and he hits a DDT on Cesaro, covers him, Cesaro kicks out, and he softens up Cesaro so he could set him up for the figure 4 leg lock, which I never got why he has the figure 4 leg lock, but he does, and but Cesaro's able to counter it the first time, and then eventually Miz works over the leg some more, and then Cesaro kicks Miz, and Miz lands on Cesaro's nuts, and the referee thinks that Miz intentionally low-blowed him, so he disqualifies Miz, so that means Antonio Cesaro wins the match by disqualification, so he keeps his title, and the Miz is trying to argue with him, saying he didn't kick him in the balls. So then Miz kicks Cesaro in the balls and saying that's how you kick somebody in the balls. Really didn't care for the finish, but I get why they did it at the time, because they wanted to build up another match between Antonio Cesaro and Miz, so it made sense in that aspect. But the match overall, I thought itself was good. And the aftermath came when they would eventually go on to SmackDown and have a 2 out of 3 falls match for the title, where Antonio Cesaro came out on top. And then shortly afterwards, Antonio Cesaro would drop the title, and then he pretty much never recovered from that. Well, he's sort of recovered now, but he was really white hot when they were pushing him, and then they just kind of buried Cesaro, and then he joined up with Zeb Coulter and Jack Swagger. They formed the Real Americans tag team, and it made no sense at the time because Antonio Cesaro had been anti-America, and all of a sudden he was pro-America. It was really weird. And The Miz would go on to have an IC title match at WrestleMania and win the IC title. And that was about it for The Miz. So they did revisit this feud later on down the line for the IC title, where the roles were reversed. Was Miz was the heel and Cesaro was the face, which worked so much better. And Cesaro is now just Cesaro. They cut out the Antonio Cesaro part, which I always thought was weird, but it is what it is. But the aftermath wasn't the greatest for both competitors. But they are in a better spot. But the short term wise, the aftermath effects weren't good. But I'd say maybe if you look back at it now, the aftermath aspects were good. Okay, so we have a WWE.com interview with The Miz, and he says that he got disqualified for an accidental private shot on Antonio Cesaro, but then he did a non-accidental private shot on Antonio Cesaro, and he says that eventually he is going to get his hands on Antonio Cesaro and win the United States title. But right now, Antonio Cesaro is the one that look stupid because of me, The Miz, and I'm The Miz, and I'm awesome. I thought it was kind of a heel promo. This is why I thought it was so awkward to see Miz as a face, because he's just a natural heel. And he just kind of has that look on his face where you'd want to punch him in the face. So I never got why they turned him baby face, but whatever. Okay, so next Kane's backstage, and Daniel Bryan comes up, and he asks if you're still not talking to me, are you? If this is about me eliminating you in the Royal Rumble match. If you think about it, it was every man for himself, and you eliminated me after you already eliminated. So technically, I should be the one not talking to you. And then Kane says, well, why don't you try that then? And then Daniel Bryan says that, Daniel Bryan says, why are you so serious, man? And he says, I'm so serious because I'm focused. Well, he actually asks why he's so angry. And he says, I'm not angry, I'm focused because I've been in the WWE for 15 years and I've never main evented WrestleMania, and I want that opportunity tonight. And then Daniel Bryan suggests that him and Kane work together like they always do, watch each other's back, and when it comes down to each other, they'll fight it out to see who the best guy is. And then Daniel Bryan reaches puts out his hands for a hug, and Kane and Team Hell No hug it out. And Kane says, that's a great idea. You'll watch my back, and I'll watch my back. And Kane walks away, and Daniel Bryan's like, what? I thought this was great. I always thought Team Hell No had great chemistry together, whether it was as opponents or as a team. And they were always fantastic together. And Comedy Kane is, I like Monster Kane, and he's my favorite, but Comedy Kane was just as great too. Okay, so next was a Elimination Chamber match where the winner would face Alberto Del Rio for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 29. The participants were Jack Swagger with Zeb Coulter ringside, which I'll get to that in a second, why they were together, versus Chris Jericho versus Randy Orton versus Daniel Bryan versus Kane versus Mark Henry. I think I said everybody. I might have missed somebody, but whatever. Now I forgot to mention the one thing that I talked about in the build-up. Jack Swagger and Chris Jericho actually had a history with each other because Jack Swagger had actually cashed in the Money in the Bank contract on Chris Jericho in 2010 to win the World Heavyweight Championship. So that's pretty interesting right there. And this was kind of like when they were kind of starting to really push Jack Swagger, a temporary push, but a push. And Jack Swagger gets his new theme song, and he has the theme song that he has now, where it's the Real American theme song, the Patriot theme song. He had changed it, and I thought it was actually a theme song that really fit him at the time, because they had changed his gimmick up a lot. And he comes out with Zeb Coulter, and this is when I actually had forgot to mention this. This is when they had formed an alliance with each other, because I actually forgot they had done that on this show. I didn't think it was at the time. And before the other guys come out, Jack Swagger and Zeb Coulter cut a promo, and Jack Swagger says that when I hold the microphone in my hands, I talk about the fate of the world, and you need to listen because I'm talking about the truth. which I actually liked what he said. And then Zeb Coulter cuts a promo talking about how they were in New Orleans, Louisiana, and he talks about how Thomas Jefferson signed the Louisiana Purchase, and he said that I bet if he was still alive today, he would be disappointed to see what our country has done with it. He talks about how he didn't go in and fight for a year in a war to see what the country has turned into today, where people are sneaking across our borders and to see what the state of the country and the WWE has turned into. And he says that Jack Swagger is the one that's a real American around here. And tonight, Jack Swagger is going to win this Elimination Chamber match and go on to win the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania for the good guys. And I thought it was a good promo. And this was a good storyline. I was really enjoying it at the time. And then the other competitors come out. And Daniel Bryan and Chris Jericho started off this matchup. And this is when Daniel Bryan was really popular. I guess he's still popular now. But I'm saying like actively popular. This is when he was doing the no chants. And I thought they were really working for him. Everyone would chant yes and he would chant no. And I thought you had two of the Jericho and Bryan were the perfect superstars to start off this matchup. They both start chain wrestling each other. Jericho goes for the walls. Bryan goes for the no lock. And then eventually Bryan tries to suplex Jericho onto the outside, onto the chamber floor. But Jericho's able to land on his feet. Bryan goes to do this. Jericho goes to hit a back suplex on him. Bryan lands on his feet. And then Jericho tosses Bryan into the chain link fence. And then he tosses him in the ring, hits a back suplex on him. Jericho covers him. Bryan kicks out. And Bryan destroys Jericho destroys Daniel Bryan for a while. Then the next guy comes out. It's Jack Swagger. And Jack Swagger hits a amateur throw on Chris Jericho. And then he throws Daniel Bryan into the chain link fence. And he hits a knee under Chris Jericho in the corner. And then he hits a knee under Daniel Bryan while he's in the chain link fence, which looked pretty cool. And then Jericho hits a drop kick on Swagger and tries to get some offense going, but Swagger's able to overpower him. And he throws Jericho into the chain link fence floor on the outside, then throws him into the chain link fence and just grinds his face. And there was a spot where Swagger pressed his knee into the back of Bryan's head and sent his face into the steel grated on the floor, which was sick. And then Daniel Bryan hits a flying knee off the top rope onto Swagger. And Bryan continues to go off on Swagger. He hits a drop kick on him, goes for the no lock, but Swagger counters it. And then the next guy comes in, and it's Kane. And Kane goes off on everybody. And Daniel Bryan wants him and Kane to work together, so they do just that. Kane Irish whips Bryan into Swagger and Jericho, and he hits a drop kick on both guys. Bryan puts Swagger in position so Kane can hit his drop kick on him, and they both clear the ring. And then Bryan tries to steal one on Kane to eliminate him, but Kane kicks out at one, and Kane's like, "What the fuck?" And they have a little bit of a face-off. And Daniel Bryan's like, no, we gotta work together. So then Daniel Bryan offers to hug it out, and Kane's like, no, I want to go to WrestleMania. So Kane beats up Daniel Bryan, but Bryan's able to fight back. Bryan hits a drop kick on Kane. Bryan hits a drop toe on Kane in the corner, then hits the drop kick into the turnbuckle. And he hits a bunch of no kicks on Kane. And Kane tries to go for the choke slam, but Bryan counters and goes for the no lock, but Kane fights out of it and hits a sidewalk slam on Bryan. And then the next entrant comes in, and it's Randy Orton, and he goes off on everybody. He hits his typical moves, and he throws everybody on the floor, throws everybody into the chain link fence, and then he hits a draping DDT on Kane under the steel grating on the floor, which was cool. And he throws Kane into the chain link fence, and then Jericho, Bryan. This was a cool spot where Randy Orton hit a superplex on Swagger, and Jericho hits a superplex on Bryan, and they both do it at the exact same time. I thought that was really cool. And then the last guy comes in, it's Mark Henry. And actually, there was one spot I forgot too, when Kane hit the Doomsday device on Daniel Bryan while Jericho had him up on the shoulders disorders. I thought that was really cool. But then the last guy comes in, and it's Mark Henry, and he comes out and he destroys everybody in this match, and he hits a bunch of clotheslines on everybody and headbutts, and then he hits the world's strongest slam on Daniel Bryan and eliminates him, and then he throws Randy Orton through one of the pods, and then he has a little bit of a face-off with Kane, and Kane does the best he can to fight off Mark Henry, but he goes to go off the top rope to do his clothesline, but Mark Henry catches him into a world's strongest slam and eliminates Kane, and then he tosses Jack Swagger and Chris Jericho on the outside and grinds their face into the chain link fence, and then Swagger and Jericho end up working together to take on Mark Henry. They throw him head first into the chain link fence, and they Irish whip him back first, and they double suplex him onto the steel grating. So then Jericho and Swagger start fighting with each other, and Jericho hits the bulldog on Swagger, and he goes to hit the lion salt, but then Mark Henry grabs Chris Jericho and throws him into the chain link fence because that's what he do. And then he goes to squash Swagger and Jericho and just drop off the second rope and hit it like an avalanche on him. And they both move out of the way. And Swagger hits a big boot on Henry. Jericho hits a code breaker on Henry, and Orton hits an RKO on Henry. All the combination of the finishers, except for Swagger, because he just hit a boot. And Orton covers him and eliminates Mark Henry. So Mark Henry's eliminated. And Mark Henry goes to leave, and Mark Henry gets back in the ring because he's frustrated that he got eliminated, and lays out all three guys with the world's strongest slam, and he's just out of control. A bunch of referees come in to get him out of there, and it gets to the point where Booker T and Teddy Long come out and force Mark Henry out of the chamber, and they escort him backstage, and I thought this was awesome. I thought they made Mark Henry look like an absolute monster out there, and it was just really cool. So then it's just down to Orton, Jericho, and Swagger. And Swagger tries to cover Orton, but Orton kicks out. And they all exchange right hands on each other. Orton and Jericho double team Swagger. They hit a double suplex on him. And then Orton hits his typical moves on Jericho. He tries to go for a scoop slam, but Jericho sees it coming. And then he ends up hitting one on Swagger. And then he goes for a draping DDT on Swagger, but Swagger fights out of it. Jericho hits a springboard dropkick on Orton. And then eventually Jack Swagger hits a belly on Jericho, but Jericho kicks out of it. And Swagger gets Orton in the ankle lock. Because he went for the Swagger bomb. Orton tried to put his foot up, but Swagger caught him, so he got him into the ankle lock, which he had changed the name to the Patriot lock. And then Jericho puts Swagger in the walls of Jericho, and Orton hits a neck breaker on Jericho, and then he hits both Swagger and Orton with both Swagger and Jericho with draping DDTs, and then he goes for the RKO on Jericho. Jericho reverses it, hits a drop kick on he just reverses it, pushes him off, and then he goes for the lion sword. Orton gets his knees up, and then Orton hits the RKO on Jericho and eliminates him. And then immediately Swagger catches Orton with a roll-up and pins him and gets the victory, and ends up winning the Elimination Chamber match. So I thought this match was really good. I thought everybody looked strong in this match, and Mark Henry looking like a monster was awesome. Daniel Bryan and Kane teasing their breakup as a tag team was really cool. Randy Orton looked good in this match, and Jericho looked good in this match, and everybody just looked good in this match. And I think it was just what made it so, even though I already know who had won, but what made it so awesome at the time was it was unpredictable. You really didn't know who was going to win. You probably knew none of the members of Team Hell No were going to win, but it could have been Jericho, it could have been Mark Henry, it could have been Randy Orton, it could have been Swagger, which it was. But you really didn't know who was necessarily going to win the chamber match. And I thought that was great. And the aftermath came when Orton went into that 6-man tag team match with the Big Show and Sheamus to face the Shield. And eventually Randy Orton would have his heel turn and win the WWE title. Chris Jericho went on to have a pretty lame WrestleMania match and have a pretty... I thought his 2013 run was not good. I really didn't care for it, so he didn't really go anywhere good in this match. But he's still Chris Jericho. It's just his 2013 one was not my favorite one of Chris Jericho. It might be my least favorite one. He just didn't. I didn't think had a good run in 2013. And Team Hell No will go on to defend the WWE Tag Team titles at WrestleMania, and they would drop them to Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns, who were in the Shield. And then eventually they would break off into singles wrestlers, and Daniel Bryan would become a huge star and fight for and win the WWE title, which was awesome. And Kane would kind of go on to be the director of operations. So, so they both benefited from this match. Mark Henry went on to face Ryback and beat him at WrestleMania, and then he went on to have a WWE title match at Money in the Bank. He will lose that, and then he went on to have his babyface run, and yeah, it wasn't Mark Henry. This was kind of his last rise on the top before he went on to kind of do nothing really. And I'll say what happens to Jack Swagger in a minute. But overall, this was a really good chamber match. And I thought Aftermath, at least for the short term, and even somewhat the long term wise, everybody came out of this looking good. So that's kind of what I look for when it comes to these past wrestling matches sometimes. Okay, so next it shows a WWE.com exclusive interview with Alberto Del Rio and Ricardo Rodriguez. And Alberto Del Rio talks about defeating the Big Show and how it was a tough match, but he ended up pulling out the victory because no one's ever going to take that World Heavyweight Championship from him. And he talks about Jack Swagger winning the Elimination Chamber match, and he says that Jack Swagger, he personally doesn't have a problem with them, but Jack Swagger is going to have to stop doing all this talking if he wants to take away his son, the World Heavyweight Championship. And then afterwards, it shows another one with Jack Swagger and Zeb Coulter, and Zeb Coulter says that he came in there and talked about what Jack Swagger was going to do, and he backed it up, and he said that that was the match of Jack Swagger's career. And then they say tomorrow night on Raw, on President's Day, me and Jack Swagger are going to give a State of the Union address, and then that was it. Now I can kind of talk about the aftermath of where Jack Swagger and Alberto Del Rio went after this show. So they went on to feud over the World Heavyweight Championship, which I thought the dynamics worked really well. And Del Rio would retain the World Heavyweight Championship against Jack Swagger at WrestleMania. And then they would have one more match and an I Quit match where Del Rio would win that. And then that was it. So, and then Swagger ended up getting a DUI, so I think that kind of affected his push. So he went on to become a tag team with Antonio Cesaro as the Real Americans, and that tag team worked really well. So, but now Swagger's not really. I mean, I wouldn't really say that any of them really benefited. Del Rio's not even in the company today, but that's his own fault. But he's kind of not in the company today, and Swagger's an inconsequential role, and Zeb Coulter ain't even in the company today. So. Okay, so the next match was a 6-man tag team match. John Cena, Ryback, and Sheamus versus The Shield. And I already talked about the build-up, so I don't need to do the show anymore. When I was actually thinking about this match and the setup of it, I kind of always had thought that maybe this should have been inside an Elimination Chamber match. Because they always did 6-man tag team Elimination Chamber match in the video games. It kind of would have been nice to see it actually done in real life. But what they still did was good. I still thought the match delivered. And the Shield comes while they're making their entrance before they even get into the ring. Ryback, Cena, and Sheamus just attack the Shield before they get in the ring. And Cena bounces Rollins' head off the announce table. Ryback's fighting with Reigns. Sheamus is fighting with Ambrose. And all three guys get in the ring. And Cena, Sheamus, and Ryback all hit triple vertical suplexes on each guy. And yeah, it looked bad for the Shield in the beginning. And then Sheamus takes out. Then Sheamus and Dean Ambrose, when the match officially starts, start off the match. And Sheamus hits the 10 beats of the Baboon on Dean Ambrose, and he exposes his. He takes off his vest that he was wearing, and then he has a face-off with Roman Reigns, and when he gets back in the ring, Ambrose knocks him off the apron and throws him into the post, And then he tags in Roman Reigns, and Roman Reigns takes his head off with a clothesline, and the Shield gets the heat on Sheamus for a while, and they hit a couple of cool moves on him, like one when Ambrose hit a drop kick and Rollins came right back and did like a drop kick of his own. I always liked that move; it was good. But then eventually Cena gets the hot tag, and he hits all his moves on Reigns, and he goes for the AA, but Rollins was the legal man, and he hits it. But Reigns is able to fight out of it, and behind the referee's back, Rollins hits a high knee on Cena. So then the Shield dominates Cena for a long ass time, and they hit some good double team moves on him as well, like when Roman Reigns hit when they hit the double team where Rollins went off and hit a forearm on Cena in the corner, and they threw him in, and then Rollins threw Cena into Reigns where he could hit his big high clothesline, and Roman Reigns gets him into a chokehold for a while, and then Roman Reigns really hits a sick big boot on Cena, and Ambrose hits a suplex on Cena, a double underhook suplex as well, and Ambrose hits a sick DDT on Cena, and a sick neck breaker on Cena. So they just pretty much get the heat on Cena for a while. And then eventually they make the hot tag on Ryback, and Ryback goes off on Ambrose and Rollins, and he goes to hit the main hook clothesline on both guys. But then Roman Reigns attacks Ryback, and then Sheamus fights with Reigns, and then eventually he fights with Ambrose on the outside. And Roman Reigns spears Sheamus into the Timekeeper's area, which looked really cool. And then eventually the Shield are all just attacking Ryback, and they're going to hit the triple power bomb on him, but Cena pulls Reigns out and knocks him on the floor. And then Ryback, Cena goes to hit the AA. Ryback and Cena get Rollins and Reigns. Cena gets Ambrose up for the AA. Ryback gets Rollins up for the Shell Shocked. And Cena, or was it vice versa? No, it was vice versa actually. Cena gets Rollins up for the AA, and Ryback gets Ambrose up for the Shell Shocked. And Cena hits the AA on Rollins, and we think that Ryback's going to hit the Shell Shocked on Ambrose, and the match was going to be finished. But then that's not what happened. Instead, while Cena's hitting the AA, Roman Reigns comes in and spears Ryback, and Ambrose falls on him, and he ends up covering Ryback, and the Shield pulls out the victory. And it was a huge shocker. I didn't see it coming at the time, and I still marked out seeing it now just because I thought right here the Shield was going to get buried. I thought the Shield was going to lose to Ryback, Cena, and Sheamus, and they're going to lose all the momentum. It made all the sense in the world why it was going to happen, too. It pointed to that direction, where, because Cena, Sheamus, and Ryback were like the three gods. You have Sheamus, who's the WWE, who isn't the one, who is a big main event superstar in the WWE. You have Ryback, who is being pushed right up there, and you have Cena, who had just won the Royal Rumble match, and he has a track list of burying talent, and that's not what happened here. The Shield won, and they won clean. There was no outside interference. They won, and it was great, and it was really good, And WWE, I think, had a bad track of factions. Where they utilize them poorly, and I think the reason why I was so happy the Shield was being used so properly was because of the fact that at this time TNA had the Aces and Eights in the fold, and they were using that stable to shit. Like, they never won any matches or anything like that. So seeing the Shield actually be booked like a dominant group made me feel good. It was awesome. And the Aces and Eights had 8 guys in it. The Shield had 3 guys, and if you had put the Shield up against the Aces and Eights at the time, you would have thought that the Shield, you would think because the Aces and Eights have the numbers that they would win, but the Shield, they would dominate. In the aftermath, I look at this match too, feeling good about it because the aftermath is tremendous. This was they were really pushing the Shield. They ended up going on to WrestleMania and defeated Randy Orton, Ryback, and Big Show. They ended up holding championship gold at Extreme Rules, with Ambrose holding the U.S. title and Rollins and Reigns holding the WWE Tag Team titles. And then Roman Reigns broke Kane's record for most eliminations in a Royal Rumble match. They won their match at WrestleMania 30 and destroyed their opponents there. Then they eventually broke off and Rollins went solo. But these are probably the three biggest stars in the company right now. They've all been WWE champion. Roman Reigns has won a Royal Rumble match. A member of the Shield's won a Royal Rumble match. A member of the Shield's hold the Money in the Bank. Actually, two members of the Shield have held the Money in the Bank contract. Seth Rollins has the most iconic moment at WrestleMania, if you could argue, where he cashes in his Money in the Bank the way he did. I think two members of the Shield have main evented WrestleMania. All three members have held the U.S. title. Like Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and Ambrose are all like the Shield's. All three guys are like the big drawing points. Ambrose is on SmackDown now doing his thing. Ambrose has held the IC title twice as well. I feel like I'm missing something that they've done. I don't really know. I don't really know. Seth Rollins is the only superstar ever in history to hold the WWE and United States title at the same time. That's pretty special. So, the Shield rules. I mean, even all three of them at one night hold the WWE Championship. That is, you can't get it. You can't get any better than that. So the Shield became stars. And it was because they built them up so well as a faction. So, and obviously Sheamus and Ryback I kind of mentioned. Ryback's no longer in the company, because he ended up walking out. John Cena's still the face of the WWE. Sheamus is still in the company. So, out of all these guys, only one guy's out of the company, which maybe they could have used Ryback better. But I feel good. I can watch this match and not have to feel pissed off about the fact that everybody was sabotaged, or no one came out looking good right afterwards. Because when I watch the matches from the past, I don't want to just look at what happened, in that match itself. I'll still grade the match as it was, but I like to kind of look about what happened afterwards. And watching this match wasn't just a good match because it was a good match, which it was, but it kind of set up. It was good because of what happened now, and now all three members of the Shield. Well, think about it. If the Shield had lost this match, who knows where they'd be now? If you ever think about it. But yeah, overall, a really good match, and a good big victory for the Shield. The finish makes the match alone. Okay, so next, Dolph Ziggler, Big E Langston, and AJ Lee come out to cut a promo, and Dolph Ziggler talks about how he's been Mr. Money in the Bank, and he wasn't even booked on the Elimination Chamber. Has no sign of Dolph Ziggler, and he said that Jack Swagger can stay at home and take a vacation. He's now the number one contender to the World Heavyweight Championship, and he talks about how that Jack Swagger isn't guaranteed the World Heavyweight Championship because because Dolph Ziggler has the Money in the Bank briefcase, and that is what guarantees you the World Heavyweight Championship. And then Booker T comes out and says that actually Dolph Ziggler had a good line too, where he said, "You better call 911 because I've stolen more shoulders in the Hall of Fame class," which was a good line. And then Booker T comes out and he says that there's a difference between stealing shows and wasting time. And he says that he's found someone that can do so much more than Dolph Ziggler can, and he's going to face you right now. It's Kofi Kingston, which isn't really a bad combination of a match, but, we've seen many of Kofi Kingston, Dolph Ziggler matches for Intercontinental Championships, United States titles, and WWE Tag Team titles. It's kind of unneeded to see it. And, yeah, Dolph Ziggler and Kofi Kingston have their match, and Kofi Kingston dominates the first half of it, but then Ziggler hits a drop kick off the top rope, and he dominates Kofi Kingston for a while. He gets him in a sleeper hold, but Kingston throws him out of the ring, and then he dives on. He goes to dive on Ziggler, but he accidentally dives on Big E Langston, and then Kingston. Big E Langston tries to get in the ring, and this distracts the referee, so AJ Lee tries to take a cheap shot takes a cheap shot at Kingston, and Ziggler tries to take advantage, but Kingston moves out of the way. He almost hits AJ Lee, and Kingston hits the Trouble in Paradise, but Big E Langston pulls him out of the ring, which really doesn't look that way, but whatever. And then Kingston dives on Big E Langston again, and he hits a crossbody on Dolph. He kicks out, and then Ziggler hits a suplex, like a front face suplex onto the turnbuckle, and hits a zigzag for the win. And then that was it. The match wasn't bad, but it was like a match you'd see on Raw or SmackDown. And then afterwards, Big E Langston gets in the win, and he beats the absolute shit out of Kofi Kingston, and he lays him out with the big ending, and then that was it. And the aftermath that came from this was Dolph Ziggler and Big E Langston would go on to face Team Hell No for the WWE Tag Team titles. They would lose, and then Dolph Ziggler would cash in his Money in the Bank on Del Rio, and win the World Heavyweight Championship. And then he would have a concussion, and then eventually he would lose the title back to Del Rio at Payback. And then he tried to get his rematch for it, but AJ Lee cost him the title. And then at SummerSlam, AJ Lee finally turned on him. Big E Langston blasted him. And at SummerSlam, it was a mixed tag team match, and Ziggler's team won. And then Ziggler finally won the blow-off match with Big E Langston on an episode of SmackDown. And now, ironically enough, Big E Langston and Kofi Kingston are now together as a tag team. So it's kind of funny how things work out. And now Ziggler is on SmackDown, back a heel. So, you know, it's really weird how things work out. Okay, so next we have a WWE.com exclusive interview with Dolph Ziggler, Big E Langston, and AJ Lee. And Dolph Ziggler talks about how this was not an impromptu match because Kofi Kingston knew about it beforehand because he was all in his ring gear and oiled up. And he talks about how he pretty much goes back to saying that he's too good to not be booked in a match. He's the Money in the Bank contract winner, and he's the premier athlete, and he goes out there and busts his ass and steals the show 11 months out of the year. He's too good to not to be booked in a match. And then, you know, he says he went out there and he proved it by beating Kofi Kingston, and afterwards Big E Langston picked up the scraps. And then the interviewer asked Big E Langston about it, and he says he had his fun. Now he's here to do his business. And man, Big E Langston's improved since then. And I never got why they paired up Ziggler, Langston, and AJ Lee. I always thought that was a weird pair up. But good promo again by Ziggler. Okay, so next it shows a backstage segment of Brodus Clay and the Funkadactyls. And they're playing with the some WWE toys. And Tensai comes up. And Brodus Clay, he was actually wearing glasses too, which was kind of weird. But Brodus Clay calls him Sweet Tea. And Tensai's like, please don't call me Sweet Tea. And then he asks, how come they didn't make an action figure of me? And then Brodus Clay says, well, they probably couldn't make it because it takes a lot because of all that stuff on your face. Because he has like some Japanese writing on his face. And then Brodus Clay says, what does that mean anyways? And then Tensai says, it's supposed to be words of honor, but with my luck, it's probably a sushi menu. And I absolutely died at that. That was awesome. And the way he sold it was awesome too. And then Cameron tells him, smacks him in the ass and says, come on, Sweet Tea, turn that frown upside down. And then they dance together. In a sense, I actually kind of like this backstage segment, mainly because of the line that Tensai said about him, you know, about the sushi menu. That was awesome. Alright, next match was a Divas Championship match. Divas Champion Caitlyn versus Tamina Snuka. And I really didn't go into too much detail, I guess, about the build up to this match. There was one thing I missed out. They had a backstage segment where Caitlyn wasn't wrestling for a couple of weeks, so she wanted a match. So Vicky Guerrero granted her that match against Tamina Snuka, and they had a backstage brawl. That's about all I really missed. This match, you know what? There really wasn't a lot to this match. It was kind of boring. And it was really short. Caitlyn hits a suplex and then tries to hit a roll-up, but Tamina kicks out. Tamina dominates on the outside, hits a big boot, and goes for the splash. And Caitlyn moves out of the way, hits a weak-ass spear, and covers her and gets the win. That was the entire match, really. There really wasn't a lot of anything going on. And the aftermath was, I think Tamina just kind of fizzled out and didn't really go anywhere. And Caitlyn went on to not defend the title at WrestleMania. Don't know why, but she didn't. And then eventually she would go on to lose the Divas title to AJ Lee at Payback, and then lose the rematch at Money in the Bank. That was really the old build-up. I never really cared for Caitlyn anyways. She was very bland, and she just was a very generic wrestler. And I forgot to mention, she didn't even cut a promo talking about how she didn't go through all these hoops, to get the title just to drop it on her first defense. And she said that she doesn't care if she walks or crawls out. She's going to retain the Divas title. But yeah, it was just... Yeah, Caitlyn was generic. I believe she left the company in early 2014, so... You know, whatever. Okay, so next we have a WWE.com exclusive interview with Caitlyn, and it was bad. She talks about how this was the second biggest win of her career, and how, you know, she felt her life flash before her eyes when Tamina went up to the top rope, and then she hit her with the spear and won and retained the title. And she said that she made a statement proving that she could be the Divas champion, and she's going to go out and celebrate with peanut butter and go out to Chili's. It was just really bad. She like I said, Caitlyn's bland. I'm glad she's not in the company anymore. Okay, so next match was a WWE Championship match. WWE Champion The Rock versus CM Punk with Paul Heyman ringside, where if The Rock gets counted out or disqualified, he loses the title. And CM Punk comes out with the title because he had stolen it on Raw, but The Rock really was the champion. And the match starts off with them chain wrestling each other. The Rock kicks CM Punk's ass for a while. Then CM Punk gets pissed off, and they get in the ring and have a face-to-face confrontation. And CM Punk face palms The Rock, and this pisses The Rock off, so he starts attacking him in the corner. CM Punk, knowing that this could happen because, you know, if The Rock gets DQ'd, he will lose the title. So the referee pulls The Rock back, and then CM Punk spits in The Rock's face. And this sends The Rock going ballistic, and he tosses Punk out of the ring. He Irish whips him into the barricade. He bounces his head off the announce table a couple of times. Then eventually CM Punk eye-rakes The Rock, and he gets back in the ring, and CM Punk hits a clothesline on The Rock. And CM Punk takes control of the matchup for a while. He gets The Rock into a chin hold, a chin lock. And CM Punk just dominates The Rock, really. He hits a DDT on him. Rock kicks out. He hits two high knees in the corner and a clothesline. Rock kicks out. He hits a bulldog and The Rock kicks out. And eventually, CM Punk tears apart the announcer's table, the Spanish announce table, and he goes to put Rock through it, but Rock bounces CM Punk's head 3 times off the English announcer's table, throws him back in the ring, and CM Punk then The Rock tries to go for the Rock bottom, then CM Punk counters and goes for a neck breaker. Rock counters, but then CM Punk kicks Rock in the back of the head, and The Rock kicks out, and then CM Punk takes Rock to the Spanish announce table, hits a Rock bottom right on the table, and the table didn't even break. And CM Punk tries to have The Rock counted out so he can win the title. And The Rock then gets back in the ring. And then The Rock hits a Samoan drop on Punk. And then he goes for the Rock bottom. CM Punk hits like a ton of elbows on The Rock. Just elbows him away. And CM Punk then tries to go off the top rope and hit a... And CM Punk 2 also hit the elbow in this match as well, and Rock kicked out. CM Punk tries to go off the top rope and hits a springboard clothesline, but the Rock catches him into a Rock bottom. But CM Punk's able to kick out of it, which was awesome. And then eventually the referee takes a bump, and CM Punk hits the Rock with the go to sleep. And there's no official. So CM Punk, the second referee comes out. He checks on on the other official, and then The Rock hits a spine buster on Punk and the people's elbow, covers him. The second official gets in the win. Punk still kicks out. Then the The second official takes a bump. Punk falls on his ankle, and then CM Punk gets a kick on The Rock, and he asks Paul Heyman to get the title, and CM Punk grabs the WWE Championship. He goes to hit The Rock with it. The Rock does. He accidentally hits Heyman, and then The Rock hits a rock bottom on Punk, and then covers him, gets the victory, and The Rock retains the WWE Championship. I thought this match was really good. I think adding the stipulation where The Rock gets counted or disqualified made the match better, and I just thought this was a great match. I think this might have been a little bit better than the Royal Rumble match because it was actually a definitive winner, no bullshit or anything. And The Rock won, and afterwards he's celebrating. And then on WWE.com, it shows Paul Heyman being helped out, and Paul Heyman asking, "Why would Punk hit me? I gave him everything." And he's like, "I'm gonna sue him. This is a lawsuit coming." And I thought that was great by Heyman. And obviously, the aftermath of this match came when The Rock would go on to defend the WWE Championship against John Cena, a match they said they were only going to do once in a lifetime. Well, they did it twice in a lifetime, and The Rock would retain the The Rock would go on to lose the WWE Championship to John Cena in his last match in the company. He hasn't had another match since then, and yeah, that was about it. So overall, great match. Okay, the last thing, The Rock gets interviewed, and he talks about how the people in our business go out and they entertain people, and they give everything that they have out there, the heart and the emotion, and that's exactly what the superstars and women do in this business. And he says that he gives it up for CM Punk because he respects him. He was a champion, and he says that it's not easy to do in a business, whether you're a casual or hardcore fan, and he gives it up for Punk or Phil, and then that was it. I thought it was a good promo by Rock, and I want to mention too that this was the last show where it had the spinner WWE Championship, which I'm happy that they got rid of that. So yeah, that was about it. So overall, I actually thought this was a great show. It's definitely nice to go back and watch it. Maybe too because the aftermath effects are actually really good. You had a pre-show that was okay. You had the world title match I thought was good. The United States title match was good. The Elimination Chamber match was great. The Dolph Ziggler and Kofi Kingston didn't have a bad match. The 6-man tag team match was great. The Divas match could do without. And the WWE title match I thought was great. So overall, it had some great wrestling on it. I thought the show was structured really well. And you know, it's definitely nice to kind of go back and watch the show. So if you were talking to me, I would definitely recommend you go back and watch the show because there is some good stuff to go back and watch on it, like the WWE title match, the world title match. You know, it's a good show to sit down and watch. I think you should go watch it. And that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you guys for watching this video, for those of you that did. And make sure to subscribe to this channel and my other YouTube channels, Owen the Talking Native and CM Brothers channel. And that's pretty much it, guys. Talk to you later.